Hello, everyone. I bring a different perspective to the table today. I didn't realize there was a war going on social media with people talking about step parenting. Now, let me explain what I heard. I'm not part of this war, by the way. I just heard some things. And I thought my input might change some tunes out there. Basically, what I heard, women discussing how men don't want to take on somebody else's child in a step-parent role. Let me just put this out there because I think this could help, and I think this could change the mindset and maybe shift the mindset from that to something else. First of all, if you are a single parent, female or male, kudos. I know how hard that is. However, let me go on to say this. When I was around 10 to 12, somewhere in that range, I visited an elderly relative who was sick and on her last breaths from liver cancer. And her son owned a bar and he lived next door. And her son's wife went shopping with me to get me out of the house because I was a young girl, because hospice was there, you know. And she took me to this little store, and I was in piano lessons for many years. I played the piano. And she saw this little tiny baby grand piano. I think it was at like a Christmas store. And it was hanging, it must have been, because it was hanging on like a fake Christmas tree. And I went up to that and I said, boy, I hope I marry a man one day who will buy that for me. Now, let me explain. Don't jump on me for that. Just let me explain, please. When I was growing up, that was our mindset. That was what we were instilled with. I hope that wasn't your experience, but that was absolutely mine. The elders in my life believed it was the man's role to support a woman. At that young, tender age, I was still learning the world. But this relative, this woman who was married to a bar owner, she was a professional, she had a professional career, and she had a professional career outside of her husband's bar. And this is what she said to me, and I'll never forget it. Honey, what I think you need to do is learn to get your own job and your own money and buy it for yourself if you want it. And don't rely on a man to do it for you. She loved her husband, okay? So please don't get me wrong and think, yeah, women power. No, that's not where I'm going with this. What I'm saying is, the whole time I was growing up, I was taught that was a man's job. Until she straightened me out about it. And you know what happened to me? It transformed my mind. I no longer had my vision set on getting married, having the Cinderella wedding, and getting married, and having the Cinderella wedding. No, it changed me as a human being. And you know what it led to? A career in law. True story. I was watching TV one day, you know, with the rabbit ears and the tinfoil, and I saw an ad for a law firm. And I saw these smart people sitting around a table, men and women. And I saw them negotiating a case. And I was like, wow, I'm going to do that someday. And that's exactly what I set my mind on. Instead of saying, I'm going to have that Cinderella life, and I'm going to get married, and I'm going to toss that bouquet, and I'm going to wear that garter, and I'm going to do all the fun things like cut the cake. You can have that too. You can have that. But that shouldn't be your mindset. The mindset in that world was because of the way people used to live years ago. Yes, husband went to work, Female stayed home, did the cooking, the cleaning, took care of the children. I have uncles that never changed a diaper because they thought it was a woman's job. I have aunts that never went outside of the home to work because they thought it was a man's job. Now, some of you might say, well, that came from religious beliefs. It may have, but not everyone in my family is religious. So it didn't just come from that belief. It actually, I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, I believe it just came from the way people did things for hundreds of years. But now, when I was growing up in Gen X, it shifted. Because sometimes, not in my household, but in a lot of my friends' households, both parents had to work. There was no stay-at-home mom thing anymore. My neighbor girlfriends, sisters, their parents both worked in professional careers. We didn't have a parent hovering over us, and we didn't have a parent there all the time because sometimes there wasn't a stay-home mom in the household. So I'm glad my aunt told me that. I'm glad she said, girl, get your own job. I had a young mother that raised me. Now, I did live with my grandparents. I've said it 100 times before. I wasn't alone. I didn't grow up with just a single mother. But I watched my single mother suffer. I watched her wonder why no one wanted her to have the child. I was cute. I was a cutie pie. Okay? Let's get that out there in the open. I was cute. However, nobody owes you anything in this life. That's not me being harsh or critical. That's me preparing you. That's me letting you know you got this. My mother was 15 years old when she had me. Do you know what that was like? Having a baby like that in the 70s? Let me tell you what it was like. The harsh criticism, what people said about me. I was an infant. You wouldn't believe the things that people said about me. Thankfully, my grandparents were in this picture. Thankfully, they didn't listen to that. Thankfully, they took us in and helped her. But when I was 4 years old, my mother chose somebody who wasn't a life partner, who didn't have the same moral code, who didn't have the same value system. He was a drug addict. I'm not even going to tell you anything else about that situation, except that I always knew in my heart of hearts that I would not be there forever. And as a very young child, I knew to look up. I knew to look up. I developed coping skills that even some adults have at a very tender age because of my circumstance. But it did not define me. It did not make me mean. It did not make me say, well, I'm like this because this happened in my childhood. No, I wanted better. I wanted better than that. And I wanted people to know you don't have to settle for that. And then one day I was free of that. And my mom jumped right into the arms of another man because she was still pursuing that Cinderella dream, that Cinderella fairy tale. Now, let me tell you what happened. That man ended up being good to my half-sister. That man ended up raising her like his own. But me? Not so much. We clashed. By the time I was 12 years old, I knew I did not like that man. So instead of embracing that, my mother took that to mean I was a punk. So I moved away from her, and she moved away from me, and she ended up living in a state miles and miles away. I didn't see her again until my own sister had a child. So people out there that say, where are all the men that need to step up to the plate to be a daddy? And likewise, if you're a guy and you're thinking, where are all the women that want to be with a single man? My message is probably unconventional, but hear me out. It may not be what you want after all. It may not be what's best for you or your child. Focus on your family unit first. Take my story, for example, and apply it to your own life. My mother did not plan to have me at 15. She did seek out the wrong man to father me, to father her child. A bad actor, a bad character. Because all she could see was that Cinderella dream. And then when that didn't last, and she went on to number 2, without even considering me, without even considering my future, without even considering what number 1 did, she lost me. We talk today. We have a relationship today. But there were years where we didn't. I'm an animal lover, right? I love cats, dogs, everything you could think of under the sun. I grew up on a farm. Love animals. But what I see a lot of today are people who give more thought to a dog or a cat than their own child. And let me explain that one, because I don't want you to take offense of that and start reaming me out in the comments. Here, just hold on. People give no second thought to letting go of a relationship when the person doesn't like their pet. But when a human being clashes with their own child that they're considering as a step parent, they don't listen to that. They take that person in. This is going to be our family, whether my child likes it or not. People quickly get rid of a boyfriend or girlfriend that doesn't like their pet. Oh, you don't like pet snakes? You don't like a tarantula? You don't like a cat? You don't like a dog? You don't like my horse? The person's gone. The relationship is over. But in my own personal experience, when a step parent doesn't like the child, it doesn't seem to matter. So just give that some thought. And if you're a single parent out there saying, I don't understand why I can't find nobody. I don't understand why nobody wants to raise my child. Don't look at it like that anymore. Think to yourself, this is my child. This is my obligation. I want to do what's best for their future. I don't want to introduce somebody to my family unit that doesn't have the same morals, values, or considerations that I do. It's definitely challenging for single parents. It's more challenging when your kids want nothing more to do with you because of your choices. Because all the kid wants is you.